Hello and welcome. Today we are going to deal with sentence structure and basic elements of sentence structure. So what is a sentence? Let's start by defining a sentence. Well, let me tell you that there is no single definition, there is no single agreement among grammarians as regards to what a sentence is. Some define a sentence as the largest unit or a grammatically complete idea. But this definition is the one that I prefer because it says that a sentence, it states that a sentence can be a word, a clause, or a phrase or a group of clauses that together they form a syntactic unit expressing assertion, a question, a command, etc. But this definition also covers sentences in spoken texts distinguished by patterns of stress, pitch, and pauses. So what is the basic sentence structure? Well, traditionally, all sentences have been divided into subject and a predicate. So this is what a sentence should have, a subject and a predicate. The subject is the aboutness of my sentence. Can be a person, a place, an entity. The simple subject normally has a noun or a pronoun, and in the subject position I will also have these words or modifiers to the noun. Yes, we will see that later on in the course. So a subject is usually a noun phrase being a phrase headed by a noun, and the default position of the subject is before the verb. As regards the predicate, a predicate describes a property of the person or the thing being referred to by the subject, yes, and at least it should contain a verb or a verb phrase. The verb is the most important element in the predicate because it will dictate, it will say how many arguments I need after the verb. That means, do I require an object? Do I require a complement after my verb? That's why it's the most important element in the predicate. And also because the verb carries the semantic content. Let's have a look first at some of these subject features. Okay, we have already dealt with some, but let's go further on. It's not always the first element in a sentence to begin with. Have a look at this example. Eventually, the managing director intervened in the dispute. So in this case, it's clearly the subject is clearly not eventually, because eventually is an adverbial and I can omit it, I can take it out, and the sentence still makes perfect sense. In a declarative sentence, if I want to find the subject, I could turn this declarative statement into a yes/no question, or make or who or what questions. Like, for instance, the baby has been crying. The baby being the subject and has the operator or auxiliary. Yes? So what do? I front the auxiliary, and what comes after this operator or auxiliary is always going to be the subject. Well, you may already know this, but its subjects are overtly absent in imperatives. That means we cannot see them. When I say overt, it means that you cannot see something. So even though we know that help me with the luggage has got a subject, you. It's not there. We cannot see it. In passive voice structures, the object will normally occupy the position of, well, not normally, the object will occupy the position of the subject. For example, in active voice, this is the police call the bomb disposal squad. But in passive voice, the bomb disposal squad takes the position of the subject. And normally, we tend to omit the original subject when we form the passive. Yes? So we have already dealt with the subject as a sentence element. But I want to go a little bit further on into verb, objects, and complements as other sentence constituents. Let's talk about the verb. Well, the verb may consist of more than one word, and we have to identify the category of these words. In a sentence like you could have been imagining, what we have first are auxiliary verbs. Yes, but the main verb is the last one. Why? Because it carries semantic content. You might remember your definition of functional categories and content categories. Well, the verb is a content category because it carries semantic meaning, and that's the reason why it's going to be one of the most important elements in a sentence. Verbs can also change its morphology. Take, for example, a sentence such as she walks to school every day. Well, walks is inflected in the third person singular. But auxiliaries can also change its form, and normally auxiliaries express differences in time or attitude. And together with the main verb, they make up the verb constituent in any sentence. So you have to take both. A verb, any main verb, specifies the need for a direct or an indirect object, or no object. That's the reason why we divide verbs into transitive and intransitive verbs, depending on the whether they assign arguments or not. A direct object is the direct receiver of the action being specified in the sentence. Take a look at this example. The man builds a house. Well, the house is the direct receiver of the building action. Okay? We can always replace a direct object with a pronoun. And the default position for a direct object is after the verb. If we want to identify a direct object in a declarative sentence, we may ask a question introduced by who or what, followed by the operator and the subject. The object is going to be that constituent answering the who or what question. Have a look at the first sentence. Carter has been photographing light bulbs lately. So if we make the question, what has Carter been photographing lately? We answer this what with light bulbs. Same happens here. Don is phoning his mother. Who is Don phoning? Here we answer his mother. His mother answers this who question. So as I said before, in an active sentence, an active sentence turned into a passive sentence, the direct object of the active sentence becomes the subject in the passive sentence. Indirect objects, well, they indicate to whom or for whom the action of the sentence is being done. So they are the indirect receivers of this action. Take a look at, for instance, this example. The man builds his family a house. The house is the direct receiver of the building action, whereas the family is the indirect receiver. That's the reason why it's an indirect object is usually equivalent to a phrase introduced by to or for, and its default position is after the direct object. Let's talk about complements. Complements are other elements in a sentence, and they are attributes. Yes, they attribute an identification or a characterization to the subject if it is the subject complement, or identification or characterization to the object if it is an object complement. A subject complement, it sort of renames or describes the subject, and therefore is usually a noun phrase, pronoun, or an adjective phrase. We know that a subject complement is there because what we see before is a linking verb within the sentence. The typical one is the verb to be, but we have other linking verbs. Have a look, for example, at this sentence. The man is a good father. Meaning, the man sort of is a sort of equivalent to a good father, and vice versa. Well, adverbial complements. Adverbial complements are obligatory, whereas adverbials, we must not confuse these two, are optional elements in a sentence. Without an adverbial complement, the sentence feels incomplete. Compare these two examples we've got here. The protesters were demonstrating outside the White House, and the protesters were outside the house. So if I remove outside the White House in the first example, the sentence doesn't feel incomplete. It makes perfect sense. But if I remove outside the White House in the second example, then the sentence feels incomplete. There is something missing there. We can't make sense of the protesters were alone. Most typical adverbial complements indicate space, location, or direction. Well, that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Please read chapter number 3 from An Introduction to English Grammar from Greenbaum and Nelson. You've got these available at your study resources section, and you can reach me if you have any questions whatsoever. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice week. Bye bye.